Good evening and welcome to tonight's driver's ed class. Hope everybody's having a good evening. I've got my mic working tonight. I've got everything loaded up, ready to go. So we'll just kind of wait for people to log in. Good evening, good evening. Everybody ready for some warm temperatures tomorrow, next couple days? So tonight we're going to be covering a lot of information that's some textbook, some state manual, some from a conference that I attended that I thought was going to be useful in driver's ed, so I've integrated it into tonight's program. So I hope tonight's class is interesting. I know last night we spent the whole time talking about safety, what to do with seat belts, how to make sure that they're adjusted correctly, and why they're beneficial, and how does the state of New Hampshire rack up with other states in the country. The difference between a secondary and a primary offense when it comes to seat belts. We took a look at airbags and how they've changed over the years, how we have more of them in a vehicle. They are mandatory now in all cars that are being built. And we spoke briefly about helmets and why it is important to always wear a helmet. We know that if you're under the age of 18, just like with seatbelts, the state is telling you what you have to do. But once you become 18, you're an adult. And that decision comes up to you, what you choose to do, whether you want to side on safety or be a little bit more of a risk taker. So that is it. That is what we covered last night. Let me take a look, see how many people we got logged in here. 13. We're almost up to a full class. I didn't look at my calendar. I think I may have one opening like 9:30, 10:30 tomorrow morning. And I think the rest of the day is pretty much taken. Friday, I have some openings after 4:30. So keep that in mind. And Saturday afternoon is pretty much open too. So if you want to get a drive time in soon, remember to text me at the end of tonight's program. And we'll see what we can do about slotting you in. But been a good week for driving. Been really happy with what everybody's been doing behind the wheel. Of course, we can get a little bit better on some things, but the improvement I saw on some people from our second time out driving compared to our first is huge. And I think that has a lot to do with the nerves settling down a little bit and getting used to the car. So I think that hopefully that will continue on. Now, a lot of what we covered tonight at the beginning is from the state curriculum. And remember when we talked about how you're going to be tested, that it's just not from the state manual, it's from the curriculum. I'm a firm believer of trying to make a curriculum cater to a teacher's strengths. I'm very much one to integrate PowerPoint and videos and have you do your reading on your own rather than to sit with the state manual here and read from it. I don't need to read this to you. This is not story time. This is not, bedtime with Toll. This is learning how to drive. So what I hope tonight's class will do is start changing the way that you think about your approach to driving. I think the best drivers that I see are the ones that have good vision, meaning that they're picking everything up that is important in the driving scene. And also drivers that have a solid base of knowledge of traffic law, knowing what is required and when to do it. I know you're learning, but one thing you should never do when you're driving is to be confused. Okay? Being a confused driver is a setup to a crash, because you're going to gamble or you're going to make an assumption and it's just not going to work out for you. So the more that you use your eyes to give you information, the better that you interpret that information, the better driver that you're going to be becoming. All right? So we're going to lay down, hopefully, a solid foundation of how to use your eyes better tonight, how to make sound decisions, and how to basically make good turns and lane changes in passing. Turning, lane changes, passing is what we're going to talk about at the very end of tonight's class. So let's get right into tonight's PowerPoint. You know what? I don't know if I ever put in the turning. I think I didn't do the turning PowerPoint. We'll get to it in a minute. All right. So vehicle movement and placement. Understanding the science of movement and vehicle placement will create a safer drive for everyone. A lot of what you do behind the wheel to be successful is the way that you set things up. So the way you position your car, the speed that you're traveling as you set up your vehicle to make a turn at an intersection, to merge onto a highway, to enter a roundabout traffic circle is very key. So as we saw in the video last night about physics and biology and how the body, there's 3 collisions: body to an object, or car to object, body to the inside of the dash, and the last collision is your internal organs to the inside body cavity. Driving is very much a science-based activity. So you have to have a good foundation of how that science applies to you. So let's write down a few notes here about basic science or physics when it comes to a car. So there's the driver's ed vehicle behind the 3 terms that I want you to write down. So right now I want you to write down pitch, roll, yaw. Now pitch is described as the vehicle's weight shifting forward or backwards. Now if you've driven with me, you know when we come to a stop sign, I ask you to feel the pitch, feel the car moving forward and then coming to a resting stop. That is telling me the car is no longer moving and we're ready to make our checks before we pull out into traffic. If there is no pitch to a vehicle, especially with a stop, then you have not come to a complete stop and you are rolling a stop sign. Now, why would a car pitch backwards? That is too much acceleration. That's when you're hitting the gas pedal a little bit harder than you probably should, and the car is kicking back and lifting up in the front. Roll, I think we know if we've ever taken an off-ramp off a highway, this is when the vehicle's weight shifts to one side. Everybody in the car, let me come out of here for a second. If you've ever been in a car and the driver's been driving too fast, you know everybody in the car is doing one of these. If your passengers are doing this when you're driving, you're creating a sense of roll to the vehicle. One side of the vehicle is a little bit higher than the other. Now, that's going to be problematic in bad weather. Now, we had some black ice on Monday. So you got to be careful. Any type of weight transference on a slippery road will cause you to skid, to lose contact, and you're going to have problems. So you really want all 4 tires pressing down on the road at the same time and the same amount of pressure. That's going to give you better mobility in and out of turns. The minute you start rolling, and the next term I'm going to talk about yaw, where you're dipping down on one side and lifting up on the other. So yaw is low on the front end, high in the back end. And if you make a turn, the vehicle is going to pivot. Let me take the book and show you. Okay, so here's a car. I'll make it try to point it up to the camera. So it's dipping down in the front and lifting up in the back. So if you're making a turn, it's going to pivot around the axis. And this is what's going to cause you to go out of control in bad weather. So what we've got to try to do is to make the car, balanced, both left, right side, front, and rear. So the center of your car, center of gravity, is going to be pushing down on the roadway to give you maximum traction and pressure. So let me get back to yaw. So yaw is when the rear tire lifts up, the front end dips down to one side, and you're going to be spinning on that axis. And that's going to be yaw. So that's the basic principles of movement of your vehicle: pitch, roll, and yaw. And a lot has to do with your speed. A lot has to do with what you're doing with the steering wheel. So if you understand slower speeds, turning the wheel ever so gradually, not so quick, you're not going to have major problems in bad weather. And we're going to talk about bad weather next week. Okay, let's move to the next. So here's pitch. Well, what causes it? Inexperience. People that don't know how to use pressure of the brake pedal, hitting it way too hard. Some of you are there, but you're getting a little bit better. Why would you have pitch to the rear? And that could be road rage or aggression. So you're accelerating away from your stop signs, traffic lights, a lot faster than you probably should. Or it could be that you're just not familiar with the vehicle. Okay, the vehicle is strange to you, unfamiliar, and you're assuming it's going to react a certain way, and then it doesn't. So to the left there of the picture, it shows you pitching to the front and pitching to the rear. Okay, and notice some of the terms that they talk about: control braking, threshold braking, trail braking, all terminology that we had from last week. So this is hopefully going to serve you well from looking back at your notes. So remember, some of these terminologies will be questions that you're going to need to know. What causes roll? Definitely number one in your notes, you should write down speed. Second thing is road design. Let me get my little pad here that I wrote my things on yesterday. Let's see if I can show you what it looks like for a road to be crowned and banked. So let me get out of here for a second. All right. So here are your two roads. The top one is crowned. All right. So notice, okay, the center line is up high and then it dips down on the side. Okay. Dips down on either side. This is the way that most of our roadways are built. All right. They need to be crowned. Now, banked is high on one side, lower on the other. So there's banked. Now, what I want you to write down in your notes, the only reason why we design roads this way, well, the top definitely is for water drainage. Okay? Water drainage. Okay? It's all going to go off to the side. Now, banked does two things. It does help for drainage, but more than anything, it allows you to go at a faster speed into a turn. So a banked roadway helps you to make it. By the way, is this roadway banked to the left or to the right? Okay, it's banked to the left. It's for a left-hand turn. I see there's a reflection. Okay, That's for a left turn. That's what a left turn's going to look like. A right turn's going to be like this. So this is going to be for a right-hand turn. If you take a look at NASCAR, any motor speed raceway, they don't have flat roads. Everything is a banked roadway. And that's the only way that they're able to go the speeds that they do without having the cars fly right out of each and every turn. You have to have a certain degree of banking to allow to make those left turns, and they just go around in a circle. And really, extremely high speeds. If you flatten that out, maybe even by half of the degree that you have for a bank, you're going to have to cut your speed probably by over 50%. And it's not going to be that exciting to go to a raceway to watch cars go around at 70, 80 miles per hour. It's a lot funner, much more fun to watch them go around at 180 to 200 miles per hour. Next term is, weather. Whenever you have bad weather and you have a banked roadway, go slow, okay? Whenever you have water, ice, snow, sleet on the roadway, because of the speed that you're going into a banked roadway, you've got to go slow. Because if you carry that speed throughout the whole turn, when you come out of it, that's when you're going to have your problem. And it's probably at the halfway point. That's when it's really, really going to get bad. Notice the red car in the picture. See how he's dipping a little bit? Okay, that's where the problem is. See, his speed is too fast. And he's rolling a little bit. And you're going to feel it. I'm telling you, when you start losing contact with the roadway, when you're driving, you're going to sense it in the steering. You're going to know something's not right. And that's another reason why you want to do as much driving as you possibly can with your parents, with me, before bad weather. Because you want to get as much experience to get a sense of what it really is like to lose control. Because think about how scary it's going to be. If you get your license and you've never driven in the snow before, you're going to have to do this all on your own. No one's going to tell you about, cut your speed, change your position on the road, check your mirrors more. You're going to have to be thinking that out on your own, on the fly, while you're going down the road. And it's going to be challenging. Yaw is the last, and this is probably more so for bad weather. You're not going to lose control like today. I don't care how fast you would be driving on a roadway. Yaw wasn't going to take place today. But when you start introducing, rain, snow, sleet, ice, things like that, yaw does play a bigger factor in your driving. So between speed design, road design, and weather, yaw could have a factor in your drive. I do want you to diagram this, where it says cornering. Notice they use 3 colors, green, blue, and red. So I want you to draw a turn, and I want you to draw a car like what we have in this picture. And I want you to write down the 3 terms. Inertia rather than inertia, if you want to just write science. Because a car in motion will stay in motion. So basically what the red line is showing you is that if you do not change your speed, meaning braking, or if you do not institute some type of steering, you will go straight ahead. And you will go at the same speed. So that's science. All right? So the red line is science. The green line is your intended path. That's where you want to go. That's where your eyes are looking, and that's where you think that the car is going to go. But, now this is the interesting part. if you do not brake before that black arrow that says apex, and rather than put the word apex, I want you to write the term, or just write the word middle. If you to take a look at that, that is probably the middle of the turn. So this is the key. This is what I want you to write down. This is what I want you to remember. This is really, really important. You need to be braking at the beginning of a turn until your back end gets past the middle of the turn, that apex line. If you let go of the brake just prior to that mark, or when your car is halfway through it, you're going to start going to that blue line. That's where your car is actually going to go. You have to implement braking and steering at the first half of your turn to be successful. Those of you that are making bad turns, it's because of your speed and how much steering wheel input you're putting into the turn. You're either oversteering or understeering. You're not going where you want to go. You're cutting between where science is taking you and where you want to go. You're going to the blue line. We've got to solve that problem. So, my philosophy, I'm going to get out of here for a minute. My philosophy, it is better to go too slow into a turn and then speed up at that halfway point than to come in too fast and then have to bring down your speed. Because if you're braking just before that apex, that middle portion, the car is going to push to the outside. It's going to push to the outside of the turn. Now, when they drive with you, I'm going to make believe I'm the driving inspector. They're going to have a clipboard, and they're going to be grading you on everything that you do, okay? So, always think slow. Never think fast on your driving test. They're going to give you more grace. They're going to grade you more fairly with a slower speed than a faster speed. You're only going to be with them for a short period of time. When you go with me, you're only out with me for about an hour. You're trying to impress me, okay? Once you get your license, it's totally up to you. If you want to disregard whatever I say, you know, hopefully I made some type of an impact, but you're going to have a chance to work it out in your own head when you're out on the road by yourself as a licensed driver. But when you've got your parents in the car, when I'm in the car, a licensing officer that's next to you, they're looking for control. And control starts with speed and the right amount of steering into your turn. All right? So try to remember, don't make them nervous. Don't make them scared of what you're doing behind the wheel. Now, the other thing, you don't have to write this down, but I thought this was interesting that they included this. If you take a look at the picture where it talks about the tire and the rim, and it shows you arrows where air is being lost through a gap. When you take a turn too fast, there's going to be some tire flexion, and it increases tire wear and heat. And there's always going to be a chance of blowing out your tire. So, you know, you probably heard the term, drive it like you stole it. Driving a car is not a video game. You know, you're not driving a stolen vehicle and trying to get away from people. So all this fast turns and fast getaway stuff, you know, you may think it's cool. You may think it feels good. But when you start having to pay for tires constantly or repairs because you're having crashes because you're going so fast and you're leaving the lane, the thrill of going fast is going to go away. So be smart. Don't put too much wear and tear on your vehicle. Be very careful about your tires and how you're maintaining them and how you're wearing them out, the way that you drive. So will your equipment hold up? Okay, now the next few slides are from the state curriculum. I wonder if the state will ever listen to one of my classes here. So I'm going to give you what they gave me to give to you. I'm not a huge fan of some of the terminology, some of the techniques that they have here. I see the point with maybe some new drivers, but I'm going to go over this relatively quickly. If you have any questions, make sure that you text me at the end of class or when we're out driving, and I might be able to explain things a little bit more. But in order to teach someone that's really never driven before, they're trying to simplify some of the terminology and the techniques of how to, maneuver your vehicle in traffic. So this one is target. So please write down the word target. And what they're trying to convey to you is that you should always be looking down the road, finding something that is in the middle of your lane, and you're going to be aiming for that. Just like with a rifle, looking at a bullseye, you're trying to line it up to the center circle. So aim your steering where you want your car to go. I hope that makes some sense. Now, where your car travels is called target path. So that green area is what's between your left tire and your right tire. So if we had a spray can underneath the vehicle, and as we were driving, we laid a big patch of paint on the roadway, this is where it would take us. It would take us straight towards our target. Okay, so that tells you about your position. Now, I think there are other ways that when we're out on the road, I kind of use, if I see that you're having a problem, I could say, I think with 3 of you that comes to mind, I'm thinking we're a little bit too close to the right side of the road, and I may try to keep pushing you a little bit off to the left. Until we get to where there's painted lines, sometimes it's very hard to use the technique of targeting your path. You could always look for your target, but target path's a little bit harder to figure out. Now, this is what I want you to write down in your notes. This is how the state explains it. So using your steering wheel, so what I want you to write down is that 12 o'clock on your steering wheel. So if your steering wheel was a clock, right where that black strip is, you're aiming 12 o'clock to the center part of your roadway, your target. And the further you look down the road, the better off you're going to be with picking up a good target and following it. It should never be right down in front of your vehicle. It should be always up. This is why it used to be lining up. There used to be hood ornaments on a vehicle. And they said you should always line up your hood ornament with the white edge line off to the side. This is going to keep you in your lane. But you were focusing all your attention to your hood ornament and to the right side of the road. You were missing things that were straight in front of you, like stop cars and traffic lights. So they said, well, we've got to change where people are actually looking. So then they changed it to where your steering wheel is like a clock and you're using that target of where you're trying to aim to. So if we take a look at this picture, is the car on target or off target? Now I'm going to let you comment right now. I'm going to take a drink of water here for a second. So I want you to put a comment. Yes or no, is he on target or off target? And also write down, if he's off target, what does he need to do? All right? Okay, the delay is pretty bad, so I haven't seen any comments. So hopefully someone's going to write something. So basically what you needed to do, I'll go back. He was off target, and you had to turn, I believe, to the right to get back on target. So this is where you're really lined up. The car is back on target right now. There we go. There's my comments. That's what I want. I should time and find out how long the the gap is, because it's incredible. I wish it was more of a live type of thing. Okay, good. So most of you, everybody got it correct. So we knew that we were off target. Now, what I want you to write down, when you're looking at a target, you basically have to know what to look for. So just looking down the road and finding something in the middle, I mean, it makes sense. It's going to keep you on target. But I want you to write down is where to look and what to look for. Okay, so those two terms, I think we know how to look. We know how to use. We're going to talk a little bit more about eyes, but where to look and what to look for. I want you to write that down, because some of you don't know where you should be paying attention to. Should it be just in front of me? Should it be off to the left a little bit more than I'm doing right now? And I'd say that probably 80% of you don't look to the left that well. You're not picking up as much information from the left as I think that you should. And I'm assuming this because I'm not asking a lot of questions sometimes when you're driving, but I look at your head and I look at your eyes, and I look at, especially with pedestrians, are you seeing the pedestrian off to the left? I'm telling you, most new drivers have no problem with people that are on the right side of the road, but they have a huge problem picking up people on the left side. So make a mental note of that or write down your notes. And I like the phrase. It says, remember your vehicle is likely to travel where you look. So you never want to be staring at something for a long period of time. Now, be very careful when making a lane change, because here we are in the left lane and we want to move over to the right lane and make a right-hand turn at that traffic light. So you tend to make a right turn. So where's your target? Basically, it would be the license plate of that truck, because you want to go to the right lane. You want to go to the center of that right lane. So remember, where you're looking is where you're going. But what I want you to write down in your notes is, before you start moving to the right, you better be putting on your signal, checking your rear view mirror, your side view mirror of what could be coming up on the side. Now, the next couple acronyms, LOSPOT, stands for line of sight, path of travel. So write that down. Line of sight, path of travel. It's because we don't see things well, and we don't have enough time or space to correctly solve a problem. So the more we look down the road, the more time we will have to think about what needs to be done. And I've taken some of you in some pretty tight situations with cars. I'll admit, we've had some really rough situations, but I think all of you have done a pretty good job on handling each one. A couple times we could have done it maybe a little bit better, but on the whole, you're handling the bad traffic situations with some skill and acumen of driving. So that's good. So line of sight is LOS, POT is path of travel. So LOS blocks a driver's ability to gather critical information about their intended path. Path of travel blocks, or vehicles are blocking you either to the front, rear, right side, or left side. So let's talk about what are some of the common causes that would cause you a problem while you're driving. Your environment would be up there. Now, I don't expect you to write every single thing down here, okay? So just write down line of sight problems could be environment. And just write down a couple things like bushes, the weather, hills, okay? Park cars at intersections. So you know when you come to a stop line or a traffic light, it's difficult sometimes to see. So what I want you to remember is that when you are driving and you come to a stop sign, you're going to have a stop sign and a stop line. Always choose the line. All right? They painted it there for a reason. If they wanted it right with the sign, they would have painted it right with the sign. They might have only been able to, put the stake of the sign on the grass, 6-7 feet away from the edge of the road. But you're going to be able to go up to the line. So your first initial stop is always at the line. So what I want you to write down, that is what you're legally required to do. That is your legal stop. Now, if you're looking, and we said the environment causes problems with vision, you can't see to the left or to the right, then you're going to have to creep up 6 inches to a foot at a time. That is called a safety stop. So each time you move up a little bit, you get a little closer, you see a little bit better. You get up a little bit more, now you see a little bit better. So creeping is acceptable on your driver's test. It's acceptable when you drive, but you do not want to go past that stop line 2 feet on your first stop. You're going to scare people. They're going to think you're running the stop sign or you don't have any control of the vehicle. And who knows, maybe that's it. It could be. Other vehicles, we already talked about parked vehicles. Anything that's bigger than you, trucks, buses, are always going to cause problems with your vision. Sometimes vehicles that are stopped next to you, you've got to look through their windows. Slow-moving vehicles, vehicles entering from a roadway will block your vision, your line of sight. You've got to move up. Other environment situations would be any type of signs, intersections, narrow lanes, roughy, bumpy road surfaces. Now, this is path of travel, I'm sorry. This means that staying on the roadway. Rain, ice, snow, water, loose gravel, sand, leaves, and oil. So all of these could create a problem with your positioning on the roadway. Other path of travel problems would be getting too close, cars that are making bad turns. Remember, you got to be at least 4 seconds behind the vehicle in front of you. That is the new terminology, or not terminology, new time frame for following distance. When I first started teaching driver's ed over 30 years ago, they said you should stay back 2 seconds from the vehicle that's in front of you. Then about 15 years after that, then they said, no, that's really too close. You got to do 3 seconds. Well, in the manual that you have that I gave you, so it came out about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, they've changed it again. They want 4 seconds. So I guess their philosophy is there are a lot more crazy drivers, so you need more time to react to everybody that's driving so poorly. So more distance gives you more time, and that's going to help with decision making. I do want you to diagram this, so I'm going to keep this on the board here for a second. So I want everybody to draw a vehicle and then make these 6 quadrants. You've got left front, right front, left rear, rear, and right rear. So every single quadrant you have to be aware of when you're driving. Now, everything that's to the front of us, let me get out of here for a second. I'll put this back on in a minute. So everything that's in front of us, okay, if we put our arms out, okay, from ear to ear, okay, this is 180 degrees. So this is your peripheral vision. Like if I was to put my fingers, right, you can see in the screen now, but my fingers are near my shoulders, okay, I can see my fingers moving. So you're need to be accountable to what is happening with bicycles and pedestrians right where my fingers are moving. okay, coming to the side of you. Now, everything that's behind me right now is my rear view mirror, my left side mirror, my right side mirror. So this is why you constantly be checking your mirrors while you're driving, because that's going to allow you to see those 3 areas behind you. Okay, that's going to make you a more of a aware driver. Now, anytime someone lingers into one of those areas, you've got to think, okay, what should I be doing right now? Should I speed up? Should I slow down, move to the right, move to the left? You've got to make some changes. You don't want anybody, getting crowded into one of those areas. Now, it's going to take you a little bit of time, and I know it's not the best picture, but I want you to try to count how many people you see outside of a vehicle, all right? So just take a moment, okay, and try to count all the people outside of the vehicle. And put how many you think it is in the comments on YouTube. So I will tell you what the correct answer is. So hopefully the answers will be coming in soon. But the correct answer is 7. Okay, let me try to explain where they are. So let's go to the red car where the yellow sign is. There's a person to the right. Go all the way up to the top of the roadway where there's a crosswalk. There are actually 3 people. Okay, 3 people up there. So now we're up to 4. If you look off to the left, on the sidewalk, there's a woman in green. Okay, so we're at 5. If we go to the left of the picture, there's a guy that's walking. So there's 6. Number 7 is actually the white pickup truck to the left has an open door. And if you look at the ladder, there's a hand. There's a person dealing with that ladder. So that's our 7th person. So there are actually 7 people. Now, I know it's a tough picture to pick everything up, but when you're driving, you've got to be looking at everything. Anything where there's a person, that person could be making a decision to do something. Like a pedestrian could make a decision to walk across the road, jaywalk, or use the crosswalk. A person in a car, like the white truck, can make a decision to open up the door. So just be aware that anything where there's a person, that they could be doing something that's going to impede you on the roadway, make your job more difficult as a driver. See, a lot of people couldn't even see everybody. Told you it was hard. See, look at 2 people. You only could see 2. Now, I also want you to diagram this, okay? There are 5 positions. Let's see if I can hold on here for a second. Let's see if I can get my picture up here. I'm trying to put my picture on the screen. Oh, here we go. Oh, I got it. Here we go. I'll move this over here. Okay. Make it a little bit bigger. So what I want you to write down is draw this diagram, and I don't know if you can see, I've got a little hand. I don't know if it's pointing to where the cars are. All right. Well, anyways, the car that's furthest from the left. Okay, I want you to put the word center right on that vehicle. So make this diagram with these 5 vehicles. Now, just to the right of that car, where I told you to put the word center, I want you to do the top car and right left of center, and the car that's below it, right on top of it, right of center. So both those 2 vehicles are riding on its perspective line. The car to the left is on the yellow line. The car to the right is on the white line. Now the car that's over the dotted yellow line is far left, and the car that is over the white line is far right. Now the state has terms: lane position 1, lane position 2, lane position 3, 4, and 5. I don't think you're going to remember after tonight that I want you to go to lane position 3. But I hope that after tonight, if I say go right of center, you're going to go to the white line. If I say go left of center, you're going to go to the yellow line. If I say go far right, you're going to the breakdown lane. If I say go over the yellow line into oncoming traffic, you're going to go way over to the left. So that's why I wanted to kind of explain. So the state does some pretty strange things with their terminology. I'd rather just go center, left of center, right of center, far left, far right. And why, I guess I should get out of this again. Jeez. I think another thing you should remember is that some of these you're always going to use left of center on a left-hand turn. You're going to use right of center when you make a right-hand turn. So I absolutely want you to remember that. Whenever you make a right turn, go to the brake in the white line. When you go to make a left-hand turn, go to the brake in the yellow line. And then depending on emergencies, we may have to go far right, far left. But probably 90% of your driving is going to be in the center position. Equal distance on one side, equal distance on the opposing side. Don't get too close to either line. Stay centered, because if you can do that, you're not going to have a problem with parked cars that when you're driving in the city, and when you're driving on the highway, you're not going to get too close. If you've got lanes on either side of you, you don't want to be right of center or left of center. You want to be smack in the middle of your lane. So that kind of takes care of some of the state curriculum. Let me get out of this and go to our next topic. And this was in your reading. I think this was chapter 7. We're going to talk about how to use your eyes. Now, do not write down every single definition. I only want you to write down certain ones. All right? So I want you to write down visual acuity. And what I want you to write down is that you need to have clear, sharp images when you drive in your driving path. If you can't see traffic lights, if you can't read traffic signs, you are at a disadvantage. Driving is going to be more difficult. Now, the example that they give is you're traveling at 30 miles per hour and you have very good vision. 20/20 vision is really good vision. And visual acuity means, good vision. You will be able to read a 6-inch street sign from a distance of about 180 to 225 feet, or 3 to 5 seconds. With 20/40 vision, you would have to be 90 to 135 feet away, so half the distance, or 2 or 3 seconds closer to read the same sign. So the closer you are, the quicker you're going to have to turn the wheel, the quicker you're going to have to brake. When you're picking up that street sign from 225 feet, you're going to have plenty of time to react, plenty of time to deal with everything. Next one is distance vision. Okay, if your distance vision is poor, you may not see hazards till it's too late. So this is seeing things up ahead, and that could be because your glasses aren't clean, you haven't cleaned the inside of your windshield, or you're going too fast. If you're going too fast, okay, you're not going to be able to see things, and you're going to make unreliable choices. The next one I do want you to write down, and that's depth perception. Depth perception is judging objects that are in relationship to your vehicle. So there is a relativity to what you're seeing in your mirrors. You see them, you see you, and you're making a judgment. They're close or they're far away. If you can't make that decision because of poor depth perception, you're going to be cutting off vehicles, especially when you're passing other cars. Your following distance is going to be way off. It's not going to be accurate. You may even pull out in front of cars that you don't see quite well, or you think that they're further away than they really are and they're closer. Stopping will be a lot quicker, so the distances that you stop are going to be way off. So depth perception is a problem for people, and it's something that you really have to work on. Now, here's a little activity I want you to do, okay? And while you do this, I'm going to try to put in my PowerPoint. I'll wait till I get to it, and then I'll put it in. I forgot to put in one of my PowerPoints tonight. I'm going to show you a picture, okay? So what you focus on is what you see most clearly when you drive. So I'm going to put a picture on the screen in a moment, and I'm going to put it there for about 3 or 4 seconds, and then I want you to write in the comments what you saw, all right? Write down at least 2 or 3 things, all right? So here we go. I'm going to show you a picture. Okay, take a look at it. I'm going to count to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, everybody, I'm going to give you a moment. Write down what you saw in the comments here on YouTube. Bend and stretch. Reach for the sky. Hope I turned my mic on. Okay. No, you can't watch that. Turn that off. Okay, everybody failed driver's ed. All right? This was a test of your observing skills. Now, bear with me, okay? It's kind of tricky. What I showed you was a picture of a baby. All right? That was a picture of a baby. Everything that you wrote down was in the picture, but it was not the main picture. Okay? When you're driving, you may think you got to be paying attention to the yellow line and the white line and the traffic light. Yeah, that's important. They're on the road. They're there, and you have to see it. But wonder if you're missing the pedestrian that is stepping out between two parked cars. How come you didn't pick them up? That was the most important thing in the next 50 feet. It wasn't the lines. It wasn't the traffic light. You had a green light. Why are you going to hit the pedestrian? Why didn't you see the pedestrian? So the question is, why didn't you see the baby? This is a picture of a baby. Let's take a look at this again. If you take a look at the tree, inside of the tree on the right-hand side are the feet of the baby, then the belly, and then up near the tree branches you have the hands. Then you've got the nose and the mouth, the eyes, the forehead is up near the very top part of the branch, and then the bottom of the water is really the back of the baby. So they tried to take your focus away from the picture. So they drew the baby first, and then they added all that other stuff. Don't be confused when it comes to driving. Meaning is that it's more than just keeping it between the lines. You have to be looking for the bigger picture, or you're going to hit things. You're going to hit cars. You're going to hit people. You're going to run stop signs. You're going to do all these things that you thought that you would never do. Okay? So, yeah, it's a picture of a baby. So what I want you to write down is this term. I want you to write down inattention blindness. Now, what inattention blindness is failure by a person to notice, and you don't have to write the word stimulus because a lot of people get confused, but what you probably should write down, inattention blindness is failure by a person to notice something that is in plain sight. So let's use that picture that I gave you. If I told you I'm going to show you a picture, I want you to find the baby. What is the first thing you're going to do when I put the picture on the screen? You're going to look for a baby. How about if I told you the next time that we drive, I want you to find all the pedestrians? What are you going to be looking for? You're going to be looking for all of the pedestrians. When people don't tell you what to look for, you don't look for it. Now it goes on, this stimulus is usually unexpected but fully visible. This typically happens because as humans, we are overloaded with input. It is impossible to pay attention to every single input that is presented. A person's attention cannot be focused on everything. Therefore, everyone experiences inattention blindness. Even your parents, even I do. We're all human. Some of us are just better than others at it. Let me show you an example. Let me show you a video of someone that has inattention blindness. Tell me what you think.
The difference between these two men seems obvious. Their faces are different, their hair is different, even their shirts are a different color. And yet an experiment by psychologists Dan Simons and Chris Chabris at Harvard reveals that our brains actually process very little of what comes in through the eyes.
In this experiment, a subject comes up to a counter and a first experimenter hands them a consent form. As soon as they finish signing the consent form, they hand it back to the first experimenter, who then takes the consent form, ducks down behind the counter to put it away, and a different experimenter then stands up and hands the subject a packet of information and sends them into a hallway where we ask them questions about it.
This wonderful experiment uncovers an aspect of the brain's attention system known as change blindness.
Change blindness is the idea that we often miss large changes to our visual world from one view to the next. we're often not able to see large changes that would appear to be perfectly obvious to somebody who knows they're going to happen.
And incredibly, in 75% of cases, the subjects don't notice a thing.
The lady who took me up here, she opened the door for me and told me to walk over to the desk.
This form.
All right. I think there was a sign that said experiment. And a man there gave me a form to sign.
There was the guy standing under a big sign that said experiment. And to my left, there was like a pot with some dirt in it and some plastic containers. Is it the fifth?
Yes.
Oh, I filled out a form.
Okay.
Right.
This form. How long would it be about before it's...
And I asked him how long it would take. He said about 10, 15 minutes or so.
I guess I have the time to do that.
Did you notice anything unusual at all after you signed the consent form?
I just signed it, and I didn't even pay attention to anything that was written on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
After you handed it back to him, did you notice anything unusual happen at all?
If you could just take this into the next
No,
room.
no, I probably wasn't even looking that direction. I probably
Okay.
turned and looked towards the clear door. I saw some people there.
Okay.
Then I turned back and looked at him for a second.
Okay. Did you notice anything unusual at all after you signed the consent form?
No. This is only going to take 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, it'll be real short.
Okay.
The person who stood up was actually a different person.
Okay.
I gather you didn't notice that that was different?
No.
A different person actually stood up and handed you this form and sent you out toward me. I gather from your action you didn't notice that?
No.
Okay. Don't feel bad about that. Actually, most of the time, we find about 75% of people don't notice.
You serious?
Yeah. The person who stood up with the packet was actually a different person
Wow.
than the first person.
That is incredible.
So I gather you didn't see it then.
I didn't catch that, no.
Okay. What's really interesting is that some people notice these changes and other people don't notice these changes.
Okay, if you could just take this.
And we really don't yet have a good idea
Take that and go into
what separates those people who don't from those people who do. It might be that there are individual differences and some people are better able to detect these sorts of changes. But it's also possible that it's just coincidence, that the people who noticed it just happened to be focusing on a feature that changed. They just happened to be paying attention to the color of the person's shirt.
take this into the next room.
And the people who failed to notice it just happened to be paying attention to something.
So basically, you can see how that could apply to driving, where change blindness would be like you're looking at your phone. Okay, the text message just came in, you're driving and you look down, but the last time that you were looking up, there was nobody in front of you, and now there's a pedestrian. Or you thought that the light was red, and you look down and you get a beep from someone behind you, and you look up, and now that the light is changed to green. So there is a direct correlation between driving and this inattention change blindness. So now that you know what I'm looking for, I'm going to give you a chance to redeem yourself. All of you did terrible on that picture. So let's try to redeem ourselves with this next little video I'm going to show you. Count how many changes takes place in this video, all right? So count and then put the number of how many changes.
Watch this next sequence carefully. At the end, I'll ask you a question about what you've seen.
Hi, I'm Magic Singh, and today we're in Portobello Road, and I'm going to show you guys a classic in magic, using matches. And today to help me out is Mark. Mark, tell you what, place your hand up for me nice and flat. Now, I promise this won't hurt, all right? So here's the idea. Let's just light this up, and if you close onto that nice and tight, here we go. Watch this.
Keep watching.
Don't know if you felt that or not. I'll tell you what, have a look inside. Open it up. See how the match is actually returned into the book, and it's still burnt. Okay, you're not impressed. All right, it was my first trick ever. But here's the idea. Just place that back in your hand, close it tight, and turn it face down again if you can. Now we're going to use one more thing, and we're going to use a magician's best friend, playing cards. Now the idea is really simple. You're going to choose one, so take anyone you like. Perfect. have a look for yourself, and do me a favor, show the camera as well if you can. Brilliant. And you know what? Place it back face up on the deck. Now, it doesn't matter if I see what the card is, because we're going to do something completely different. Just watch this. Here we go. I'll do it slowly. Watch the king. I don't know if you felt that or not. No. Tell you what, have a look inside. Open it up.
Oh.
Check it out.
It's King of Diamonds. It's my card.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Did you watch the trick closely? This is a famous illusion called Inattention Blindness. This illusion is not about the magic. While watching the routine, you may or may not have noticed the changes taking place. The question is, how many changes did you see? Was there 1? Were there 3? Or were there 5? The answer is there were 3 changes. The first change was the red hanky to a green one. The second was his shirt swapping to a t-shirt. The last was his assistant becoming a completely different person. How many did you see? So why is it that you didn't see these big changes? And the reason is that the brain receives so much information on its eyes that you can't see everything simultaneously. So instead it picks and chooses according to what it thinks is important. If you change something that it doesn't think is important, you just literally don't see it.
Now, most people only say 1 or 2. A few people get it right. So it looks like you guys are doing a pretty good job. I see the answers coming in. So that's pretty good that you're getting it right. Now, I'm going to show you one last video, and it's going to explain things, and it's going to tie it into driving a little bit at the very end. So let me show you one more video clip.
You are about to take part in a quick experiment. Take a look at this. Okay, now, did you happen to notice anything odd? Watch again. See any changes? Don't worry if you didn't see that it's 2 different men. It means your brain is doing exactly what it should be. It's focusing on the meaning of the scene rather than on the irrelevant details. Imagine how much energy and brain mass it would take for us to remember every single person, place, or thing we encountered. The things that matter, a conversation with a coworker, your child's first step, would be drowned by a deluge of information. So when there are minor changes to the world around us, we often don't pick up on them. There are 2 similar phenomena at work.
Inattentional blindness is the failure to notice something that's fully obvious right there in front of you when your attention is engaged on something or someone else. Change blindness is a failure to notice a difference between what's there right now and what was there a moment ago.
Scientists such as Daniel Simons from the University of Illinois have spent years devising experiments testing just how perceptive and unperceptive humans actually are.
So we feel like we're aware of everything, that we're taking in all of the details, and that if something important happens, we'll automatically notice it. It'll capture our attention. The reality is that we often don't notice unexpected things because we're aware of far less of our world than we think we are.
So how much or how little are we actually aware of? We decided to recreate one of Simon's most famous experiments to see for ourselves. Here's the setup.
Our senior series producer Vin poses as a lost pedestrian and asks a passerby for directions.
Excuse me, I'm looking for the skyline.
Then, we break the 2 up, walking through them holding a large sheet of wood. Now watch as I replace Vin. You might think people would notice the switch, but almost half the time, they didn't. Of course, that means more than half the time they did. We only tried the experiment 9 times, and by no means was it good science, but we were surprised 4 people didn't notice the switch. In Simon's original experiment, 7 out of 15 people didn't either. So what determines whether or not you can figure out the switch?
When you look at another person, you encode what's relevant for what you're doing right then, in that case, giving directions, And you don't pay attention to the details that are irrelevant, say what color their shirt is or exactly how tall they are. As long as you are able to make sense of the meaning of the scene and roughly the main categories of that person, say their height, their age, what race they are, what sex they are, as long as those important things don't change, the meaning of the scene really hasn't changed and you're not going to notice that anything's different.
Scientists have documented inattentional and change blindness since the 1970s, and while they allow you to focus your attention, this failure to see every detail can prove costly. Drivers often cause accidents because they overlook quick changes to their environments, such as pedestrians or cyclists. Faulty memories can wreak havoc during eyewitness testimony.
The goal of vision isn't to build a photograph or a complete model of the world in your mind. The goal of vision is to make sense of the meaning of the world around you. Being aware of our limitations can help us adapt and compensate for them, allowing us to do things that prevent the really negative consequences that can happen due to failures of awareness.
For example, Simons thinks that people might be willing to put away their cell phone when driving if they just understood the limits to their attention. Juries might realize that eyewitness testimony is far from ideal. And the next time you and a friend are fighting about the details of a past event, it's likely you're both wrong. Now that's something to remember.
So hopefully this gives you a different perspective about using your eyes, making sure that you're picking up not just the obvious things, but probably the most important thing with driving. Now, in your reading, they also talked about a few other terminology, and we'll go through that. These are all the videos that we just saw. I didn't show you all of them. I only did a few of them. We talked about peripheral vision. This is what you see off to the sides. We talked about the different quadrants. I do want you to write down the word peripheral vision. There's only two things peripheral vision will give you, and that is it helps you detect light and moving objects. So when you see a flash of light or a change of color, you're going to move your head and get detail. But peripheral vision isn't going to allow you to read signs. It's going to tell you there's an orange sign, but then you've got to turn your head and use your central vision in order to read the sign. The other types of aspects of vision is color vision. You must be able to recognize traffic signs, signals, pavement markings. Now, here's another good one, okay? I'm going to have you comment again on this. A big group activity here we're having tonight. A lot of questions I'm asking. I think I might have asked this on the pre-test. I want you to write down while I'm talking, what is the color of your backup lights, right? So, and don't put it on the YouTube comments. Put it on text message. So text message me so nobody else can see what your answer is. Text message me what color are your backup lights, okay? So vehicle turn signals, hazard lights, backup lights, brake lights. You need to know color, where they're located, what they're trying to convey. And remember, people that are colorblind can compensate by knowing the position of where these lights are located. Night vision is your ability to see in low variable light conditions, usually when you get into your 40s. Now, I would almost imagine if you were to ask your parents, and if they were honest with you, ask your parents how do they like driving at night in the rain. I would almost guarantee that almost every parent would say, I don't like driving at night in the rain. I see people's answers are starting to come in right now. Other concerns are headlights glare, dark windshield, poorly aimed, dirty headlights, dirty windshields. That's going to create problems driving at night. And if you can't see as well as the daytime, then you just got to plain out go slower. This is where people are having problems going off the road at night, is they don't know which way the road is going and they're going too fast and they're going off the edge of the road. And what I want you to write down in your notes, more animals are killed at night than during the day. So by the time, yeah, I know, Mikey, you can't text. By the time that the animal comes in your vision at night with your headlights, it's too late. You're going to hit it. That's why they get hit. Glare vision, the ability to see when and where there's a rapid increase of light. And I will tell you, driving now at 4 o'clock is rough. Please bring sunglasses when you come to drive. Early morning, late afternoon, because the sun is horrible. And it's going to get worse when we get snow. You're going to get that glare off of snow. And in the summertime, if you're near water, bodies of water, you're going to get glare from that too. Glasses should be worn. Sun visor is helpful, but actually it's the glasses that's going to help you the most. Now, let's talk about communications just for a moment. Okay, and I want you to write this down. A lot of people will ask me, should I put my signal on now? Or do I need to have my signal on? My philosophy is it's better to have my signal on and need it than to not have it on, okay? Now, why do we have signals? Why do we have a horn on our vehicle? It's to alert people of what we're doing. So when you communicate, you're not only giving information, you're receiving information. So we always want to be courteous. We always want to be cooperative with other people on the roadway because you don't want to be involved in a crash. Now, doing it in a timely manner will give others and you the time needed to respond to what is happening up ahead. This is why you don't want to put your signal on to make a turn too late, because you didn't give enough time for people to pull out from a stop sign. They could get a little angry at that. It does make people more relaxed. I think people are stressed now when they drive just because people aren't communicating. They're not courteous. They're always trying to push their point. They're taking them away the right of way a lot. And you don't want to be involved in a crash. It does reduce the risk to yourself and other people on the roadway. Untimely or non-communications is a sign that you're very competitive, you're aggressive, you're uncooperative. I mean, no one wants to be in a car when the driver is acting that way. It decreases the amount of time that you need to see and understand what's going on. This one I like. It requires reaction rather than response. You'll always be a better driver if you're responding to what people are communicating to you. If you're reacting, you're going to have to do it very quickly, and there could be some real issues of position and how smooth you're driving. You always want to respond rather than react. Increase stress and anxiety, as I said before. Road rage is the best example of people not communicating safe driving technique and information. And you're going to be a hazard to people out on the roadway. So ways that you can communicate, all right? Headlights, to be seen. Make sure that you always have your headlights on auto. The day running light should always be on. You should use your turn signals at least 5 seconds before you want to make a turn. That translates into about 100 feet in the city, 500 feet on the highway. Brake lights should be used early. This way people can relate to what you're trying to do and they can brake and not have to slam on the brakes. Reverse lights to warn other people. Okay? Now, I'm going to take a look at my phone for a second. I want to see how many people got the question correct. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 of you got your backup lights correct, and the correct answer is white. Okay? Other answers I received. Red light is for backup. Another person said yellow and red and yellow. All right? So it is white. Remember, what color are your brake lights? Your brake lights are red. You can't have your brake lights and your backup lights being the same color. So things that we take for granted now that you're learning to drive, you got to know for sure what they are. My philosophy on the horn is to make people go to their brake pedal and turn their head. I really don't want you to use, nobody has, but I don't want you to use your horn out of disgust. If you want to hit the horn and saying, hey, buddy, I'm here. You may not be too happy with what they're doing, but you're at least trying to get them to turn their head and to move their position. But anything that's like longer than 2 seconds on a horn, beep is not a bad thing. But if you go beep, I mean, that's a long, drawn-out beep. That's not communicating. That's being disgusted. Hand signals you should know, especially if your directionals aren't working correctly. Your lane position will communicate things to people, so make sure that you don't get into the wrong lane to do things. And also your speed when you're approaching a turn, curve, or hill is communicating what you're doing, whether you're going to be taking it slow and taking a side street or you're going to be continuing on that roadway. What are some common areas about communicating? You forget to do it. I will tell you right now, the state is going to be adamant that you use your directional on your driving test. Another common problem, people put it on too late. I'd rather see you do it a little bit too early than too late. Wrong information. Okay, wrong information. You're braking when you should be accelerating. Okay, that's not communicating correctly. Some of you still don't know your left and your right, going in the wrong direction. Now, I'd much rather you, if I say take the next turn on the right, I'd much rather have you put your left signal on and go left, thinking that is right, than when I say make a right-hand turn, you put your left signal on and then turn right. Because when you put your signal on, you're communicating things to people. So if you put your left signal on, people are going to think you're going left. Even though I said right and you're going to turn right in a moment, you got your left signal on. Someone's going to go around you on the right-hand side of the road, and you're going to run them off the roadway. That's going to be a problem. So, as I said before, think about it. It's better to have your signals on and not need them than to need them and not have them on. Well, we're getting right close to where I like to usually end class. I didn't get to turning. Maybe that's why I didn't put the PowerPoint in. I'm still getting used to these longer classes. The ones I did in the summer were we met 4 days a week rather than 3. So my timing's a little bit off. So we'll start tomorrow night on turning, and we'll get into that. But make sure that you read chapter 3 in the textbook and read section 6 in the manual. I will tell you, I think sign signals and pavement markings, so the majority of tomorrow's class, I think it's probably one of the most important classes to take good notes and pay attention to. So make sure that you do not miss tomorrow night's class because it's extremely important to give you the information about how to figure out what the colors of signs, why they mean what they mean, our lines, what it's communicating, what to do with right-of-way. That's all going to be tomorrow night. So we're going to have that to do. I did post on the Facebook page some questions. You can try to do it because we haven't gotten to turning. So if you did the reading in the manual, you might be able to do all right with that. But remember, you can use your manual or textbook when you answer the questions anyways. So go to the remote Facebook page to do the questions, because I thought I was going to get through turning tonight, but it just doesn't look like I'm going to. All right. I think that is a good place to stop. I can feel I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit. So thanks for tuning in. I hope that you can explain to your parents what change blindness and inattention blindness and how that plays into driving. And maybe you can start to pick apart some of your friends and your parents, their driving, what they're missing out of the driving scene. So, you know, you never stop learning when it comes to driving. So whether you're in the driver's seat or the passenger seat, continue to think about things to make you a better driver. And if you do that, you'll become a better driver. So if you want to drive this weekend or some of the free time that you got up, please text me and let me know you want to drive. I'll see some of you that are scheduled for tomorrow. If not, have a good night and see you tomorrow at 7:30. See ya.